One of the single most important core life skills for NTPs, especially, and some NFJs and other types to learn is the ability to discard certain thoughts and ideas, to consciously choose to let them go. And this applies in a wide range of situations, from the more macro level to, for example, careers that you've wanted to try, or places you've wanted to live, or projects you've wanted to complete that you've held on to for a while, and coming to terms with the fact that it's not serving you to keep wishing for that, to keep hanging on to that idea, and instead it's time to let that go so you can move on with your life and do other things. So from that macro level all the way down to more of the micro level, actually in conversation and noticing there are so many things I could say right now. There's so many ways I could respond right now, and consciously choosing to let most of those go and just focusing on one path forward. About a year and a half ago, I went on a Vipassana 10-day silent meditation retreat. And there were many, many benefits and many hardships on that retreat. And I was surprised to find that one of the hardest parts for me was one of the kind of innocuous seeming rules. There were a lot of rules that were that I imagine most people would think are harder. Like, you are not allowed access to your phone, you're not allowed to talk. When you're in an intense sitting period, you are supposed to not move at all, even if you have a lot of pain in your body, and that can be for up to an hour straight or longer. So there are a lot of rules that created hardship, but one of the kind of simpler seeming ones that was actually hardest was that you're not allowed to write anything down. And so here I was, someone who is passionate about personal growth and learning and self-awareness, and I was growing so much over these 10 days, learning so much, sitting there meditating for 12 hours a day, so many ideas coming up, so many lessons about myself, about the nature of reality, and I wasn't allowed to write them down. And so there were times when that would cause me a lot of distress. I would be sitting there, holding on, trying to grip a certain insight so tightly. It felt so important that I remember this. So I would repeat it to myself again and again. I would try coming up with acronyms. If I had 3 different thoughts that I wanted to remember, I would take the first letter of each of those and make a 3-letter word, and just remember that 3-letter word that would then point me to those 3 separate words. And that can be a good trick sometimes in general in life when you're trying to remember multiple things at once. But, in this case, it was against the purpose of the retreat. Because the purpose is to cultivate the ability to be in the present moment, to not be worrying about, when I get home, I can write an amazing blog post about this specific insight that I came up with, right? Or I can make a poster for myself to remind myself of this great insight. Don't forget this. This is the key to life, right? But on this retreat, I had to learn the skill of letting those things go, of feeling this insight that was so important and consciously deciding I'm going to stop trying to remember it. And as an ENTP, that was one of the most important skills I've ever learned. Because the way our minds work, especially the NTP mind, is that they're always on. They're just, churning away in the background, just coming up with idea after idea, thought after thought. And if you don't develop this skill, then overwhelm is inevitable. Because it's like piling a stack. Every time you get an idea, another idea, another idea, another idea. And before long, you've got a very tall stack. And every time you look at it, it's super intimidating. Oh my God, all these things I have to keep track of. But if instead, when a new thing appears, you say, oh, that's interesting. It'd be fun to do this, but nope. I'm tossing it off. Oh, here's another one. Interesting. Nope. Tossing it off. If you do that, then your stack stays small. It's a lot more manageable. This really applies to conversations as well. ENTPs in particular have a reputation for, or stereotypical reputation for being loud and sometimes obnoxious and hogging the spotlight, taking up a lot of space in conversations because they have so many ideas. They just want to get them all out. And this was me in the past, still me sometimes today, and it's a lot of my clients that I work with. And a lot of them complain, like I used to complain, about trouble in conversations, feeling restless. Because as soon as someone is, as someone's talking, your mind is coming up with all these responses, all these things that you want to say, maybe advice you want to give, or, oh my God, me too. Yeah, that makes me think of this and this and this. And you just want to share it all, right? Because in your mind, that stack is building. And you feel like, oh, I'm going to forget them. I have these 5 ideas that I want to share. So please just shut up. Finish what you're saying so that I get my turn, so I can offload my stack, right? It begins to feel constricting the longer they talk. You want them to pause so that you have an opening to unload your stack. Right? And so the only way of doing that without interrupting the person or without being a bad listener, because you're not actually listening fully, you're just waiting for your turn to respond, the only way is to take care of yourself by consciously unloading as the person is talking. So for me, often when I'm in conversation with someone and they're interesting, and I have all these interesting responses come up, and I'm enjoying it, right? Because they have sparked this in me, so I'm excited to share this. What I practice doing is noticing, like, wow, right now, I can see 3 different pathways I can go down. There are 3 very different responses I can give, different thoughts I can offer right now. And instead of starting to go down one of those pathways and starting to think about, oh yeah, that is interesting, what else can I say about that? I will instead focus on my breath. Focus on my body. Here's my butt on the chair. Here are my feet on the ground. Here's my chest moving up and down. Breath. Breath. And my mind is going to be saying, what about ideas number 1, idea number 2, idea number 3? Breath. Breath. So I'm consciously letting those go, all 3 of them. Those are 3, nice paths I could go down, but instead it's just breath. And then by the time the person finishes talking and they give me an opening, breath. Now, in this stillness, in this open space, I can notice what naturally bubbles up. And that's going to be the idea that's most alive for me. Because these ideas that have been there for a while, they're kind of dead. They're stagnated. They're based on what this person said 5 minutes ago. But now that they've talked, now that they've stopped, I get to see, what do I really want to say now? And it might be one of those 3. It might be something else. It might even be sharing, oh wow, I'm noticing stillness right now. Could be anything. But Yeah, I'm not saying that you have to constantly be clearing your mind, that all three of those ideas are bad, they should all be discarded, right? But it's kind of like finding the needle in the haystack. You have so many ideas, so many thoughts, and sure, many of them are good, but there's probably one idea in there. That's the great one. That's the really alive one. Maybe one, maybe two, maybe three, who knows? Out of 10, right? Out of 20, who knows how many? Depends on the circumstances. But most of those are hay. And then there's the needle, right? And so this process that I'm describing is a process of consciously labeling everything else as hay so that you're able to find the needle. And that's going to be the juiciest thing you could say. Right? If you've been kind of waiting for something to happen in your life, right? Like I can't be happy until I move somewhere else. And you're thinking about all these different places. Oh, where could I live? Right? That's not making you happy. It's too many ideas. And so it's only by recognizing that I'm not going to do most of those. I'm not going to live in most of those places. And that's okay. When you accept that, when you consciously decide, I'm going to discard those possibilities, at least for now, then the needle can emerge. The core, juiciest nugget in the pile. So I encourage you to practice pausing at the macro level and the micro level. In a conversation, you can say, hold on, wow, I'm feeling a lot right now. I just need a few moments to check in with myself and see how I feel or see what I want to talk about next. And for me, you probably noticed I close my eyes sometimes because my mind is so active. It's constantly looking around and taking in all the data that I have to close my eyes sometimes to really check in with myself. What is most true right now? What is the golden nugget in there? You might have to take 3 deep breaths and then notice what feels most important. And it's not going to be often a super clear message of this is the number one thing. Right? It's more like you're groping around in the dark and you're trying to feel the different edges of things. And you're feeling, oh, when I think about this, do I feel tense or do I feel open and excited? Is this one kind of jagged? And is this one kind of welcoming? I know it probably sounds crazy, but that's the best way I can describe it. That you won't find the answer through pure logic or kind of words popping into your head. It's more a feeling that you're groping around what feels right now. And that can only happen when you give it space. So I invite you to practice that. Practice in small ways and in big ways, purposefully discarding things. Just consciously letting them go, and it's going to be uncomfortable. You're going to not want to let it go. But this is where you practice discernment, and you build the skill of discernment, of noticing this idea is hard to let go, but this idea is really hard to let go. So maybe I'm going to let go of the first one and hang on to the second one. Okay? But it's only by letting go of many of them that you'll develop the skill of really realizing which ones are worth hanging on to. Good luck. Let me know how it goes.